Hi, everybody, and welcome to We Are a Crotchety Old Man
And a woman.
Wow, I almost had to do it for you this week. I was getting excited. I thought I'd get to be the woman part today. How you doing, Abigail?
I'm pretty good, Arden.
From our music, you might not know, but today is National Armed Forces Day. So we would like to thank everyone who either served in the military or knows someone who served in the military. Thank you so much for keeping us safe.
Or what everyone always says, which is thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. Abigail and I have military family, so it's we do greatly appreciate it. Um, Briefly changing subjects, did you know it's National Cheese Soufflé Day?
I did not. And I can tell you, I've never had a cheese souffle, let alone a souffle.
Really? I also have never had a cheese soufflé. I don't know what a cheese soufflé even is. I don't know what it looks like or anything else. But it's also I love Reese's Day. Are you a big fan of like Reese's peanut butter cups, Reese's Pieces, anything like that?
No.
Very briefly, so H.B. Reese, who made Reese's, he actually used to work for Hershey, and then he was able to he started his own company, and he tried to go on his own, but it was once he was a very former loyal employee and needed chocolate to go with his peanut butter, and he actually went back to Hershey and was able to. And Hershey said, "This is amazing. I have an idea. We will sell you the chocolate." So Reese could, Hershey could have crushed him and said, "No, you don't get any chocolate," but instead actually gave him the chocolate, and that's how Reese's peanut butter cups actually are still made today with Hershey's chocolate. Same with Oreo cookies are made with Hershey's chocolate.
Really?
Yes, pretty amazing. And that's why they knocked out their number one competition, Hydrox, which you don't hear of or see anymore.
Well, Arden, since you're big on national days, I was speaking with my best friend out of Australia this morning.
Oh, okay.
And so I had asked you what the food of the day was for Australia. And what did you say?
It's National Marshmallow Day.
Well, when I heard that, the big topic for me and my friend in Australia was she got a new puppy. Now, most people don't know, but I have two dogs, Benji and Toto. Benji was actually my friend's dog. She was here on a visa, and essentially it was up. And since she follows the law, she went back to Australia, and she had to leave Benji behind. It was gut wrenching for her. So it's been a long time coming for her, and I'm so happy. So you may say, why am I going on and on about it? Well, she hasn't picked a name, and I think Marshmallow would be great for her name.
Marshmallow is a great name for a little foo-foo dog, especially if it's white.
He's black and white, but he's adorable, and I think Marshmallow is good.
Yeah,
Good
hey,
name.
that's like a s'mores. You got to put the marshmallow in the fire so it gets a little black. Awesome, awesome. I like that. Well, hopefully marshmallow is picked. Um, so in history today, I'm not going to go crazy like I did the other week. But before I do that, did you know our last 2 weeks have been record breaking for us for the amount of listeners we've had?
Well, you told me last week was, so I knew half.
And we did it again. Well, more listeners. I really want to thank our international group as we actually have more people in England this week. Last week, excuse me. So that was great. We have people from is it Cornwall or Cornwall, and also outside of London. We have someone. So we want to say thank you and feel free to reach out to us. And with that, this day in history, right off the bat, 1631, John Winthrop is elected as the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Company. And he was English, obviously. Just
Wow.
okay. 1860, Abraham Lincoln is nominated as the Republican nominated president for president. That didn't
And
sound
I
very well.
hope no one forgets that.
Yes, there were.
He was a Republican.
Yes, and if you actually listen to how he became the president, there was multiple votes after the election. He was like fourth or fifth, and actually somehow in the end won the election. It's pretty fascinating.
All I know is he's one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, and he was a Republican.
Yes, and on the $5 bill. And now in 1917, all men and young boys know about this one. Congress passes the Selective Service law.
So is that still in effect?
It is still in effect.
So why aren't women and girls, why don't they have to register?
They should.
Yeah,
They should have
if
to at
they're
this point.
able to participate in the military, they should have to sign up for select service.
And we went from an all voluntary force, and because of World War One, Congress decided to start this.
Okay.
That we will have the ability to actually conscript people.
Yeah, I remember when my baby brother had to do it. I was a little shocked.
I remember going, and I don't remember doing it. I did it, obviously,
But again, if they're gonna, women are in the military now,
Mhm.
they should have to do it as well.
Make it
I'm gonna
mandatory.
leave it at that.
Going back to our friends in England, in 1952, Stonehenge was actually dated by a Professor Willard Libby that it was dated back to 1848 BC. Now I think it's actually people are thinking that it goes even much, much further back, and they found a bunch of skeletons there that were buried in pits. And here's an interesting fact: they did DNA sampling of the skeletons. All of the skeletons had Turkish DNA.
Interesting.
How did you don't hear about anyone from the area of Turkey in any other part of that part of Europe, but there they are somehow. Interesting. Anyway, and finally in 1980, I don't really remember this, Mount St. Helens erupted. There was a lot of stuff going on in 1980.
How can
You know why? Because I was a little boy, and all I remember was Team USA hockey. I do remember the hostages back then. Every day, and I barely remember Mount St. Helens.
I just remember seeing a picture of a person that was a photographer that obviously went up to that area to shoot it. Well, he was just covered in dust and dead.
Wow.
And like a statue. It was really creepy. So that's why I remember it.
Do you know what a super volcano is?
No, I do not.
Did you know that if a super volcano erupts, that all life on Earth, not all life on Earth, excuse me, most life on Earth would die? And the most famous is, why can't I think off at the top of the head the name of the park? It's the huge park with the geysers.
Yellowstone?
Yellowstone. That is actually a super volcano, and every time one of those geysers go off, it relieves the pressure from the volcano. If that ever erupted, we're all dead. So, happy news. Anyway,
have you been there, Orton?
I have never been there, and now that I find it really amazing that they're letting a lot of wolves, bison, and any other animals that are there. The wolves are doing great. They're off of the endangered species list. Yeah, it's a cool park that I would like to go to. It's on my USA bucket list. Now, this is an interesting. Now that we're done with that, earlier today, Abigail asked me about if I knew what a spork was. A spork is a spoon and a fork combo, and I thought it was I was like, oh, okay. And I started looking around my apartment because I am moving in with Abigail on Wednesday. Woo, crazy. And I started thinking, I'm looking at a pair of scissors, and I said to myself, who the hell came up with that idea? When was a scissor invented? And I'm thinking, do you know?
No, I
You
do
don't know.
not.
So I'm thinking like 1800s, 1700s. The Egyptians invented the scissor. So then I started looking at other things in my apartment, like when did chairs get invented? When did how did we go in prehistoric times? Like when did someone say, "Hey, I'm going to build something out of wood and make a chair"? And then I just started looking around. So this is my challenge to the people in our audience. Look around your house and find something that you think is old technologically. And I'm not so don't say the iPhone, or something like that. What is like who invented something? Who first came up with the idea of candles?
Yeah.
You know,
Something practical.
something practical. So that was just off the top of my head. And but now we also had a really, really great response to the Ask Abigail segment. So before she goes into sports, are you ready for your Ask Abigail? Abigail has no idea this is coming. And after she talked about the Boy Scouts last week, I wonder what I'm going to
Here
say
we
to her.
go again.
Okay, so here we go. Abigail, what is your thought about Harrison Butker, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, in his speech that he's getting a lot of flack for?
Arden, you hit a chord.
I know, that's my
And
goal.
I'm trying to think of exactly how I want to word this, but in this world, we really need to be building each other up. Men should be built up and not torn down, and women is the same thing. They should not be built up and then torn down. Um, but he was invited as a guest speaker to a Catholic all-girls school. He is a devout Catholic. And now everybody is protesting. They want him kicked off the team, you name it. And where is it going to end, Arden? Where is it going to end?
I don't know, but
I
I
mean,
did see the White House actually put out a press release saying
no way.
they put out a press release that all members of the Kansas City Chiefs are invited. The fact that they had to do that is kind of odd.
Yeah, well, all I know is that, every one of us in life have choices. And it's not up to anyone else or society to tell people what their choices should be. And, the big movement about abortion is choice, that the woman should have a choice and it should be her choice alone. Well, this principle applies in this case as well. All he indicated was that, you can be very happy and fulfilled being a stay-at-home mom, but he also said, or you can be fulfilled working. I mean, his mom is like a physicist. So it's just ridiculous the way that things are covered in this nation. Because as I said, if women and all these pro-choice people, say it's a choice for the woman about abortion, why can't it be a choice for the woman to decide whether she works at home or goes out into the workforce? And yeah, my blood pressure's going down now,
Sorry.
so I'll leave it at that.
I
But
did see one commentator compare it that how could you have Colin Kaepernick was praised for taking a knee, and it's kind of like Tim Tebow. He was not allowed to take a knee. Colin Kaepernick could take a knee.
same thing.
I know, it's crazy. Anyway, maybe this will bring your blood pressure down. Talk about sports.
Well, I have a couple stories I want to talk about before sports. Is that okay, Arnold?
That is always okay. People like to hear you more than me anyway.
So I've read a lot over the years, and I deal with a lot of them. But there was an article today that caught my eye about Gen Zs. And Gen Zs, Arden, if you didn't know, were people born between 1997 and 2012. And their view of the workplace, they're actually not money driven at all.
Okay.
They want a workplace that's supportive,
Okay.
flexible, and inclusive. They
Okay.
want to basically be in a DEI atmosphere. They want to express themselves freely.
Do you know what? Can you explain what DEI is to some people who may not know, like our British and our Argentine fans?
Diversity,
Equity and inclusion, right?
equity, and inclusion.
Okay. Want to make
So
sure I knew what
that's
it
that's
was.
very important for them. Um, and there's these are things that are just non-negotiable for them. Another aspect, I know when I was young and working, I had a totally different view, but this generation will not work nights, no weekends. They don't want phone or email outside of work. And they're afraid of burnout. Which again, I mean, when I was young and coming up, I had no problem with that. Um, but what really, they do make a point that this generation they entered the workforce during the COVID years. So I'll give them that. That had to be difficult. But you know what their concerns are, Arden? Their biggest concerns?
Wearing a mask in public?
Well, two of them I can relate to.
Okay.
Concerns of inflation or recession,
Okay. Perfectly legitimate.
the geopolitical conflicts. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Always.
But for some reason, they are extremely concerned about climate change. Now, this is just something I can't relate to. Climate change, even if you're a believer, I just don't know that it becomes one of your core principles as far as what you're fearing in life.
Well, I think our generation um, is more skeptical, probably because in 1970 was the first World Earth Day. And we knew that the climate, everything was going to freeze. I forgot what it was called. It wasn't global freezing, but something like that. Then you had the ozone layer. Then you had, it wasn't climate change, it was global warming. Then you had, I mean, like everything, it's always been a scare, scare, scare. You also get these same people that I noticed, like, I actually noticed it yesterday where this woman was standing outside wearing her mask with nobody around her.
Hmm.
And she was young. And I just sit there, I'm like, and then somebody else came over also wearing a mask with their friend who didn't have a mask. And I'm like, oh, why are you still wearing masks? I'm really confused by that.
I don't know. I've got some employees that wear them, and it makes no sense to me.
I mean, I can understand if you had a cold. I can understand if you were old. Wow, I'm a little Dr. Seuss there. But at the same time, it just doesn't make sense to me. But hey, I'm not going to go on that tangent because the show would be too long.
So another thing that caught my eye was the title was "The FBI's Most Wanted."
Hmm,
Was
okay.
found in Columbus today. He's only 18 years old, and I thought to myself, how does an 18-year-old end up on the top FBI most wanted list?
Hmm, what did he
And
do?
essentially, he's part of a group of people called Purgatory that's online on Instagram and Telegram.
Oh, okay.
I've never heard of Telegram, have you?
Yes, I just recently
Oh,
heard of it.
okay. Well, what he did, and maybe his other, people did as well, was he called in, a swatting call. He would call into casinos or schools and threaten to say that, they were going to detonate a bomb, and there was a rifleman out on the garage, in the car garage,
Hmm.
and, but he did it repeatedly, and because he did it between states, it became a federal crime. And
Hmm.
essentially, I just found it interesting that an 18-year-old was on the FBI's most wanted list.
Which, you know what? If the kid was like 14 years old, like it would be almost funny. But at that age, you really need to know better.
Right.
But
And
the top of the
but
list,
the maximum time, now granted per count, is 5 years.
okay.
But he's facing a lot of years because he did it a lot. But you would think that, that would be something on the FBI's most wanted list, but it was.
Right. You would think one of the drug cartels members, like the heads of it, they would be it. But you know, it's also fascinating. Like last year, I do remember there was a lot of problems where there was a lot of Congress people they were getting squatting calls.
Yes.
And they would have to keep, and the police would have to go to the people, and like and they break into your house because they don't know what's going on. And so it costs a lot of money when people do these kind of things. It's not like the old days where you would call somebody and crank call them and hang up or something. People are just nuts these day and age.
Well, this kid's gonna face some hard time.
Well, if he's in New York, he'd be perfectly fine, probably.
Probably.
Probably. All
Okay,
right.
so I hand the microphone back to you since I kind of just yanked it out of your hand.
It's your sports now. I'm just gonna.
Well, sports.
I'm
gonna always start out with Caitlin Clark because I gotta stay on her bandwagon. So they had another game with the #1 team in the WNBA, and they got trounced.
Was this her first game or second
game? Two.
Game two.
First home game.
What was her first game like?
She did it. They lost, but not like they did against the #1 team.
Okay.
They lost like 104-66.
Okay, they got spanked.
And I think Caitlin got 12 points.
An old-fashioned ass whooping.
Right. So weirdly, they went from Indiana to New York to play the same team for the next game. And this time it wasn't as bad. They lost by 12 points.
Okay.
But Caitlin got 22 points. And I think that I just need to be patient and know that she is going to get stronger and stronger with each game as she adjusts. But as I told you, Arden, I watched the game where they got trounced. Her teammates are terrible, and they don't help the cause. But then again, that's why they got the first draft pick.
Right.
So, we'll see how it goes. I'm watching her, and, hopefully she can improve her game. Nice. So, we also saw some headlines about Tom Brady. I mean, everybody knows he did the roast, the Netflix where they roasted him. And apparently, like Arden said last week, there was nothing that could not be said. They could say anything, even if it was politically incorrect.
It was over the top. It was so. I felt like Eddie Murphy was cheering. I felt like, I feel like every comedian, George Carlin, all of them were like in their graves, just going, "Yeah, about damn time," because that was huge.
Right.
But what did he do today?
But now he has announced that he really regrets he did it because of the impact on his kids, because they were pretty brutal with him.
How old are his kids?
I think they're all probably under the age of 15.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm like, I wonder if it's like not really pressure on his kids. Like, do you think like other kids were like, yeah, they called you this and they called you a bad word, or I don't know. Like, or do you think it's like he is looking for an out at this point?
How about the golfer? Did you see anything about him?
Yeah. All I heard was a golfer got arrested for dragging a police officer, and then in the same day he was able to play.
Yeah, his name is Scotty Schleifer. He's apparently, I didn't realize it because I haven't been paying attention to golf lately. He is the #1 golfer. So
wow.
on day 2, I think, of the championship, which occurs on a Friday.
Okay.
I guess he was driving into the course compound early in the morning, and there had been an accident where a man was hit by a bus and killed about 2 hours beforehand. So police had the road blocked off and had cones and so forth.
Right.
Well, he drove in.
Well, we got a caller.
Sorry about that.
Oh.
He drove in, and apparently he did not understand the police orders, and in the end, the cops rolled down his window, grabbed him, cuffed him, threw him against the car, you name it. So he got booked and put into jail. And so you tell me he said he basically stretched in the jail cell.
Yes, he was doing calisthenics in the jail, so getting ready because they let him out.
And they let him out. And what does he do? He ties a record. Isn't that unreal? I'm not saying what he did was right, but apparently, there's 2 sides of every story, and I guess that'll all come out in court.
I actually want to believe this guy. So I'm not gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because you're still dragging someone, you know. But police officer or not a police officer, he may have thought like supposedly he was wearing like a yellow. The police officer was wearing like a yellow raincoat. Maybe he wasn't identified, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you're still dragging someone through, you know. Let's wait for all the facts to come out because in this world where everyone is hated by everyone else, you know, let's wait for something to end.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
So we got to follow up from the Derby because today was the Preakness.
Preakness.
And apparently the winner was a horse named, quote, Seize the Gray.
Ooh,
Not Seize the Day.
or Seize the
Seize
Gay.
the Gray.
That made you laugh.
So, I started thinking about it. I mean, think of how many names have had to be come up with for horses.
Right. And there's a list.
I'm sure that list is very, very long.
Like they probably are sitting there going, "Oh, how about Red Solo Cup? Nope, picked. Okay, what about Beautiful Fence? Nope. This guy's got three-dimensional triangle. Nope." Like, I mean, you start running out of ideas.
Well, they apparently can continue on. So,
Right. Seize the Gray.
shifting to baseball, the Yankees are still rolling.
Soto hit 2 home runs today. That was awesome.
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 And I will hand it over to Arden for a brief update on hockey.
Brief update. We are getting closer to the NHL's version of the Final Four. And what's amazing is the best teams are still alive. There's been no big upset yet. It's possible that Vancouver could lose, but they're pretty much close to closing out Edmonton and my Rangers. Let's go Rangers. I gave up on them. I will be honest with you. They were down. It was like 3-1, and I turned the game off. I admit it. I was upset. I was angry, and they were playing like shit. Yes, I did say that. They were playing. Then all of a sudden, the luck of me not watching them came through, and all of a sudden, Chris Kreider goes bonkers and scores, gets that natural hat trick, which is 3 goals in a row. And they came back and won. And I did see the go-ahead goal, and I saw the empty net goal. So at least I didn't miss everything. But
Well,
wow,
it's not even my team, but I didn't give up on them. I actually watched the game
I was
and was
sad.
shocked to hear that Arden had turned it off.
I turned on Battlestar Galactica, one of my favorite nerd shows, and I was watching that. So I'm going to give all the credit to Battlestar Galactica. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're gonna run out of time, but I mean, hopefully we have a few minutes for this. But we were talking about horse racing, and I said to myself, is that a sport? And then Arden and I started talking, and what's the difference between a sport and a game? What do you think it is, Arden?
I still am confused. I think you have to have some kind of physical athletic ability to play something, to make it a sport. It should not be able to be done by every single, I mean, I'm sorry, competitive sport. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to tell you the definition.
Oh, please
that I
do,
found
because I feel
online.
like I'm
But it's
like a
still,
dog.
a gray line, basically. It says sport can be a game, but a game is not necessarily a sport. Competing does not make it a sport. A sport implies not just activity, but athletic activity.
Okay, so that makes sense.
So in some circles, I would consider these to be accurate that are not sports. That includes poker.
Nope. In my opinion.
Competitive eating.
You do
It's
have to.
competitive, but it's not a sport.
Oh, I wouldn't call it a sport. That's not even a game.
Right. And then you brought up car racing, and that was questionable, but
Well,
that's considered not a sport.
so it's so confusing.
It's not a game, but it's not a sport.
So there's the 2024 Olympics are coming up. And did you see what is being introduced? First off, baseball and softball are not going to be in the 2024 Olympics, but breakdancing will be.
That is
Is it?
so stupid.
So if you can get a gold medal for breakdancing as an Olympic sport, why not fishing? Why not? Like it's ridiculous. Now I understand poker. Bowling. Is bowling a sport? It's competitive. You have to know what you're doing. Is darts a sport?
Well, I'd say bowling is a skill, and it's
It's a
like
skill.
billiards and darts.
Yeah, are all
Those are all
skills.
skilled, but again, skilled games,
Okay, well,
not
cornhole is
sports.
considered a sport.
I'd have to say that's a game.
I mean, like, but baseball is a game. Like football is a game, but it's also a sport. Is boxing is not a game.
Hmm.
It's a sport. You have, I mean, so you have it's really bad. Now, I did know, and I made this analogy. I was not going to use it on the air, but I've just decided I will. So I said, peeing on a stick could be a sport, but we could finally end the trans in women's sports if we have peeing on the stick, because there's a big difference between a man peeing on a stick and a woman peeing on a stick.
Arden. I don't know where you come up with these things, but again,
Peeing on a
I
stick,
mean, we don't
official
discuss
sport.
everything we're going to talk about, but you didn't tell me about that, and I would have told you not to say
I love it. I want to be a professional stick peer.
it.
But I wanted to actually tell you that my brother invented a game
Okay.
that also could be a sport.
All right.
It's called volley pong.
Volleyball.
Volley pong. We used to have a picnic table in our backyard, and he and his friends took a volleyball and
Mm-hmm.
played ping pong with a volleyball, only using their hands. And he called it volley pong. Years later, I actually took that idea, and I used to work for a company
Mm-hmm.
called Flag House. I will mention it. And they actually sold volley pong. It was a little different. It wasn't a giant volleyball, but it was an actual real thing to have. So my brother invented a sport or a game. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. So I'll give my brother credit. What else did I have? I thought I had something for him, but because we still got a few minutes of time left, was there anything else you wanted to go over in sports or anything else?
No, I think we're good. I'll tell you, I mean, I know we're national and global and all that, but
International
here
and
in
global.
Northern Virginia, it's done nothing but rain for what seems like a whole week. What do you think, Arden?
It sucks. It really does suck. It's like 61 degrees. I want so my vision of London, England, and our person from England can actually let me know. This is what I think it's like there all the time at night, like gloomy and foggy, and
If
just
you and people that live in Seattle, Washington, I don't
yes.
know how they take
Or
it.
Juneau, Alaska. We don't have anyone from Alaska, so if you know someone from Alaska, go out of your way and find them. We would like for everyone, we are growing, as you could tell, and please, if you know someone, if you want to let them listen to it with them, give them the address, say, hey, we can be found on anywhere, and reach out to us. We're giving you guys homework. Name something that you think is not a sport that's considered a sport, or vice versa. Something that you think is a sport and that's not considered a sport. Also, in stupid objects that you look at that you are fascinated with. That's a good one. So, with that, you can reach us at we are a crotchety old man and a woman at gmail.com.
Wow, he didn't let me say it. Go on.
Sorry, I'm just trying to be fast because I'm getting the cut it sign from the rest of our staff. And I'm also at crotchety old man on Twitter/X. I'm actually on it at least twice a day, so feel free to reach out. With that, thank you and have a wonderful night, and try not to be crotchety.